right, guys, another great episode of PFREI, a passion for real estate investments. I'm your host, Fuquan Bilal. Today we got John Martinez, serial entrepreneur and highly sought after sales expert. Oh man, I've been waiting for this interview. I'm sure we're gonna learn a lot. You got a lot of great content out there, as I was just sharing before we press the record button. And we're part of the same mastermind group also. Yeah. But just everything you're doing with sales. Let me just ask the first question that I usually ask the guests. Let me back a little bit. Why are you passionate for real estate investing, John?
Yeah, so two pieces to that answer, I would guess. Number one, just real estate in general. I was only pulled into real estate maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I did sales training in corporate America. So when I did, I just the people. It's the real estate investing. The first part is the people. I just, like you said, we're in the same mastermind. I love real estate investors because really it's just hardcore entrepreneurs, right? That's who makes up this crowd. Action takers, doers, people who are fearless. So first part of that answer is I just love the people that seem to be around and associated with and inside of real estate investing. And then the investing part of it, I guess that comes from my escape from corporate America. It just learning that I can make money work for me. I now invest in real estate. I started as a sales trainer. I've got some properties now. I've got other investments as well, but just, you have to be investing in something. You have to make your money work for you or else you're going to be grinding away for the rest of your life, stocking away everything you can and then hope you don't outlive your money. So, that became apparent to me 6 or 7 years ago when I started my own business and started with some small investments. So 2 pieces of that: investing I love, and then just real estate people, the industry, everyone around it. I love it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Let's jump right into it, man, with the sales thing, because I'm a sales guy. Yeah. Well, all of us are salespeople. Yeah. People just don't know it. They don't know how to tap into that. I love sales. I can remember from when I was 8, 9 years old, my mom used to take us to the flea market, and we used to have a 6-inch booth, a 6-foot booth, and she used to go to Chinatown, buy stuff, wholesale, and me and my younger brother would be battling each other retail. And I got a love for doing sales since then. But you were doing something with real estate. So you trained over 500 of the country's top real estate investors and their teams. And the scripts and rebuttals and sales negotiations and tactics and stuff you use, it transformed the real estate investment industry. And basically you're doing this training that you're doing and helping people develop their sales team to generate leads and everything else. So let's talk about that. How did you transition into that? And why did you want to do something like that?
It was one of those completely accidental things. I had started my sales training business. We had trained in about just over 50 industries, I think. And we're actively training just really any industry you could think of, from low dollar sales, phone sales, vacation sales, to high dollar technology infrastructure and things like that. And one day I did some training for a telemarketing company. They needed new scripts and all that kind of stuff. So I went in and I worked with the team. The telemarketing company actually was selling leads to real estate agents and investors. So anyways, I did the training, trained their people. And about a day later, I got a call from pretty much a random real estate investor down in Houston, Texas. And he says, "Hey, these salespeople just called me. They've been calling me for years. Something had changed. I loved it. I bought." I said, "What the heck changed in your operation?" They said, "Hey, we brought in this sales guy to retrain us and rewrite the scripts." He says, "I got to meet him." So I met this guy. His name is Will Danker, down in Houston. I drove down to Houston. I spent a couple of days with him. And he was just, he was probably doing 15 to 20 properties a month, just flipping, or really just wholesaling them and moving into kind of larger asset classes and things like that. But that was my introduction to real estate. And I started to work with Will, and I loved it because it was the type of sale. It was human to human. It was emotional. There wasn't boardrooms and layers of people to work through. It was just probably the purest form of sales you could, imagine. And they were helping people. So it was just everything lined up. So anyways, I trained Will's team. Will was part of a different mastermind and said, "Hey, I started working with this guy and My team is doing better than they ever have. So I started getting all these phone calls from other real estate investors from across the country. Before I knew it, I had 40 or 50 I was working with. And I ended up just saying, hey, this is going to be my niche. This industry needs some transformation. So over the next year, I abandoned all other industries and focused 100% on real estate.
What do you see that is the biggest struggle most of the, I guess, acquisition managers or the people who are on the phone run into once they get beyond the basics of having empathy, understanding, value first approach, and all of those fundamentals? What do you think is the biggest hurdle they have to overcome to generate those deals?
Yeah, the biggest hurdle I see with acquisition agents across the country, there's probably a few of them. I'll just start knocking them down. Number one is they don't believe. There's a weakness in sales. If you don't believe in what you're doing, if you don't think you're actually helping people. And sometimes acquisition agents, they don't understand how much help they're giving. Some people have a hard time getting past the fact that they're buying an asset, for pennies on the dollar. And they think that's just not right. What they don't see is the flip side of people who are struggling to get out of a property with no way, and they just feel absolutely helpless. And then after the property is purchased, how it could be life-changing for them, right? So that's it's called a non-supportive buy cycle, but basically, again, all it means is they don't understand the help that they're giving, so they can't sell because they just don't believe in it. So I see a lot of that. So acquisition agents, people who've just done really well in other industries, they would not sell a house for pennies on the dollar. They don't understand, so they can't force themselves to go through the sales process and to do it effectively. And anytime they get any pushback at all, they just completely bail out. Someone says, I might be able to get a few dollars more. They say, yeah, you probably should go do it. I'm out of here. So it's just that mental thing. And I think a lot of acquisition agents struggle with that because they didn't get into the business as an investor. Usually acquisition agents are hired by the investors who've seen how the business works, all the help that they give. And when my mom had to sell her house, she was, it was run down. She had held on to it for 10 years. It was absolutely crushing her. And we found a local investor to buy it for cash. So when you believe in it like investors do, it's a really easy sale. But when you're hired on as an acquisition manager and say, hey, our goal is to buy houses or properties for 60, 50, 65 cents on the dollar, they just can't wrap their heads around it. So the first biggest weakness I see is a mental weakness. Beyond that, I think it's really understanding that it's an emotional sale. You really have to tap into the emotional side of whatever's going on with the sellers, with your prospects, and have a deeper human connection and conversation. It's not just about, I'll give you X dollars for your property. You have to go much deeper than that. And a lot of people don't understand that, or they just don't want to take the time. It's, hey, I've got cash. Do you want it or do you not? So I guess those would probably be the two biggest weaknesses I see, just mentally not being committed. And then number two, not understanding that it's not about buying a house. It's an emotional type of sale.
This is awesome, man. This is really good. I was waiting for this interview because I'm a sales guy. I love it. So I like the resistance. I like when people tell me I'm not interested. I like when people say no. That's when the fun begins. When most people will be, cowering and trying to move to the next one, because it's a challenge for me when they say I'm not interested in no. And I believe being a good listener makes you the ultimate salesperson. That's my belief. What's your take on that?
I agree with you 100% on both. You mentioned a couple of things. Being a good listener, if you listen and then occasionally ask the right questions to kind of guide a conversation, people will tell you exactly how to sell them. They'll tell you everything they need, everything they're concerned about, every reason why they would do business with you and every reason why they wouldn't. And you can use all that to craft a great presentation and to kind of connect the dots between where they're at and how you can help them. So I think it's all listening. You talk only when you need to guide the conversation to where you need it to go, right? If there's more you want to listen for. The other piece of that is no. The best salespeople, they love no. Mediocre salespeople, new salespeople, they're afraid of no. So they never put themselves in a position where they can hear no. They avoid it at all costs. But great salespeople, they want the no. Because once you get to a no, the sales conversation gets a lot better. I usually try to get to the no as quickly as possible. I want to agree with my seller that it's not a fit as soon as possible, because then I can take my sales hat off and go, listen, what are you going to do? And the conversation can get real. So you're absolutely right. There's a challenge with the no, but if you also get to a no, it's so much easier to sell from a no than from any other position.
Mm-hmm. Definitely agree. Definitely agree. It gives you an opportunity to pivot and draw out of them the reason why. Yeah. So that's great, man. So in going through the scripts and everything else, do you see when you're doing your training, the acquisition manager struggle is the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Struggle with trying to stay scripted and instead of adding their own flavor and really expressing from their heart what the goal of what they're trying to do. Like you said, you're helping them. Sure. And most of them don't see that. Look, I'm trying to help you get out of a situation because maybe I have information where this is a tax lien or a tax foreclosure, or you're being foreclosed on, or it's some type of judgment where we can help you in a situation. Do you see that they try to stay monotone, scripted? That's another way. Yeah. And this is for anybody who's listening, by the way, whether you're in real estate or anything, this correlates with that, I believe, because if you're I see too many people, like I get so many text messages and phone calls from, all these people because I'm trying to buy my houses, and they're like so monotone, scripted. And as soon as they start talking, I'm like, you know what? I'm not interested.
Right.
Like,
You're 100% right. It is a trap people can fall into. People want that easy button. Like, what are the 3 words I can say that make this easy? But the truth of the matter is scripts I look at scripts like training wheels, right? You can lean on scripts and use scripts just until you can learn to ride on your own. So when people learn a new tool, so we don't even teach scripts. We have scripts, but we teach tools, and we teach a process, right? So we say, here's the process to follow. Step 1, step 2, step 3. If you run into trouble, if you meet resistance, here's some tools. And then at the very end of our training, if our training is 45, 50 minutes, the process and the tools, then at the very end, we say, by the way, if you're struggling on how this might sound, here's 4 or 5 ways that it sounds when I say it or when other people say it. So if you want to, adopt those scripts, use them as training wheels, and say them 10, 20, 30 times. And what you'll find is you're going to find your own words. You're going to be using the same tools, but it's going to sound different. It's going to feel different because it's going to be you. So scripts are great to use temporarily as training wheels until you find your own way.
And that's the same with rebuttals. Would you say that? I mean, because you have a rebuttal for everything. It's like you probably 100 rebuttals. They might say this and you say that, and people get stuck on learning the rebuttals verbatim instead of saying, okay, these are bullet points from these rebuttals that I can grab if this situation come up. So do you teach a lot about rebuttal, learning, or you say, okay, what's the top items you get rejections for? Let's just focus just on that. And I think people try to go too wide and create all these 100 rebuttals.
Right. Our approach is a little different. So when you're talking rebuttals in traditional sales, really traditional sales goes like this. You meet someone, you try to build a little rapport, you do a presentation, you tell them why you're great, basically, or why your product or service or whatever you do is great. You ask for the deal, and then there's objections, and you're going through all the rebuttals, objection, rebuttal, objection, rebuttal. Our process is different. We don't really get any objections because we proactively go after them early. Mm-hmm. We know all the reasons why people don't sell a house. So we dive into motivation just to make sure there's a compelling reason why they would, take some action. And we go pretty deep into why someone's motivated. I'm going to skip that for now. But after that step, what we typically do is we train people to pull out every objection. They go after them proactively. Risk, discomfort, all their other options, people who might influence the deal or other decisions makers. So we train them to actually go after everything. So you're not on a defensive posture. You're not rebuttaling. You're going after it. And you're helping your prospect kind of eliminate those one by one on their own. And only after you go through all the motivation and they're really wanting to take some type of action, and then you systematically address every reason why they wouldn't, it's really easy to do a presentation to hit all those bullet points and then ask for the deal, basically. So ours is a little different. We don't get objections because we go after them proactively very early in the conversation.
Awesome. Now give me the setup, John. So I'm a real estate investor. Let's say I've been doing this 15, 20 years. I've been generating leads through relationships. Now
Yeah.
MLS is on fire. I can't find good deals. I hear this seller direct thing is good. I want to jump into the text messaging, call campaigns. I need to build my team.
Yeah.
How should my team be structured? Should I just go out and hire 5 asset managers and say, John, train them up, put them on the phone? Like, give me the blueprint. Like, how should I set this up, and what type of training should I put in place for my asset managers to do some lead gen? My acquisition manager, I'm sorry, to do some lead gen.
Yeah, I mean, lead gen hasn't changed much. There's, you got mail, you got cold calling, you got PPC, texting. Those are the main ones. Some SEO type stuff. But basically, when you're going after leads, it's top of the funnel. I don't think you need a highly trained salesperson at the top of the funnel there. You were just looking for people, in my opinion, who raise their hand and say, I have some interest. So usually we use, I used to run a call center. And so we use, I don't want to say lower level people, but it's a different skill set. Instead of knowing how to sell, usually when you talk about high volume lead gen, you're talking about a type of person who can do the same task over and over and over again. They don't really have to think on their feet. They're just looking to pluck people out of a crowd who raise their hand and say, I might be a prospect. I have some interest. So when I'm structuring a team, I want people who could just do, they're not really salespeople on lead gen. I know that sounds funny, but I'm looking for people to raise their hand. And then and that's a different skill set. A great salesperson can't sit there on the phone and cold call 8 hours a day. They're just not built for it. They're built for deeper conversations. They're built for action. So lower skill set people to generate leads, go through a couple of basic qualifiers. And then once a lead is deemed qualified, passed off to a salesperson to really work that lead. So usually you've got, 1, 2, 3 people, depending on the type of lead gen you're doing. Whether it's inbound or outbound or whatever, they're just filtering leads. They're just looking for people who raise their hand, and they're following up with old leads, seeing if it's time to throw them back at the salespeople. The salespeople are off to the side, and where a lead gen conversation is 5, 10, 15 minutes max, the salespeople are having anywhere from 20 to 60-minute conversations trying to close deals. So that's kind of the 2 parts to what we've seen really work in this industry.
Now, do you think for salespeople is real estate related, if you're trying to set up shop, to find someone who has real estate experience, maybe like a realtor who's not getting any action and, they want to work on it, or do you find somebody green and train them?
We've done both. So I'll give you 2 examples. They both work. It just depends on the model. So one model where we've used realtors, is we worked with one hedge fund, and they sprung up, 50, 60 markets within about 6 months' time. So in order to grow that quickly, they utilized local real estate agents. And we gave them some very basic training, and they did really, really well. So that's one example where someone who has some real estate experience, because they know the market, you're moving into lots of industry or lots of markets very quickly. That makes a lot of sense. If I was doing my own market, I would just grab someone without real estate. I wouldn't eliminate people if they had real estate experience, but I certainly wouldn't look for it, because I don't want a real estate person. I want a salesperson, right? I don't care if they know about real estate or not. In fact, too much real estate knowledge might impede sales, might slow them down. I'll give you some examples. If you know the ARV on a house, if you know the construction and exactly what it's going to take to get a house back into shape, and you're focused on those numbers, those types of people, when they have sales conversations, guess what the conversation's about? What they're comfortable with and what they know. So all they're doing, instead of digging into, what can I help you with? What's the issue? Where are you now? Where do you want to go? How important is this? What are the challenges or the obstacles we're going to have to tackle together to get you from A to B? They don't have those conversations. They lean back on because those are uncomfortable conversations. They just lean on where they're comfortable. So I would listen to recorded sales calls of real estate pros, and they were giving real estate lessons. They weren't selling anything or helping anyone through that decision process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense. One last thing, would you? Because this virtual assistant thing is really big, and people are using virtual assistants to go around the clock and make calls if you're in several different markets.
Right.
would you recommend having someone, because sometimes there's a communication barrier, language barrier. Would you recommend bringing someone in-house, basically in-house versus VA?
Yeah. So again, VA. So when we did our call center, we were doing about 1 million calls a day, and we use VAs out of the Philippines. There's some challenges with that, but there's also a lot of pluses. So we realized we had to make the training very simple. We had to make it not a lot of variables, right? VAs, for example, they're probably some of the hardest workers and best workers on the planet. And I'm just talking about the Philippines because that's what my experience was with. The issue was they had to be told they needed direction. They didn't want to act on their own. They didn't want to, make decisions on their own on the fly. They needed to know, hey, if A happens, I do B. So we had to develop a call script basically where, there's one or two kind of objection handlers, like whatever it was, these are just your two go-to. We couldn't say, here's 72 different objection handlers because they'd be going down the sheet. The conversation would stop and it'd get choppy. And there was not enough time for them to perfect it. So we used VAs. We developed a very simple script and they just made that call and we gave them, hey, a very simple decision tree. If it goes here, you say this. If it goes here, you say this, hang up, make the next call. And they were really freaking good at it. Now, those are things that and VAs ran our spreadsheets and they were amazing. So I highly recommend VAs, but you have to give them the right work, right? If I'm running a small organization and I've got a salesperson who's also handling the leads and maybe doing some light lead gen, I wouldn't use a VA for that because there's too many parts of that role. There's too many responsibilities. There's too much thinking you're going to have to do on the fly. So you just use the right tool for the right job, right? VAs sign up for that job because they're good at completing tasks quickly and efficiently over and over. Those are the types of people that flourish in those environments. That's what they like. And that's what they're built to do. So you don't want to take that person and then put them in an extremely complex environment because they won't thrive there. Mm-hmm. So short answer, just to recap, right tool for the right job. VAs are absolutely amazing at lead gen. I'd go VAs 9 times out of 10.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. This is another great episode. So much great content, man. Let the listeners know where they can catch you at and what you got going on. We know you all over social media with all your training and stuff. What you got coming up next, John? You got any training or something happening?
Yeah, we always do. We got the online training goes year round. You can find all that information at midwestrev.com. Midwest REV is short for revenue.com. We do events every now and then. I think our next one, we do a 2-day boot camp just on sales and acquisitions for investors and acquisition agents. I believe that's mid-January sometime in the Dallas area. And I just started doing very small one-off mastermind events, not like traditional masterminds. I just go get a private estate somewhere in the country. We max out at 15 people. There's never anything to sign up for. We just hang out for a few days and kind of barricade ourselves indoors it's really more to foster new relationships and things like that. So that's on the website too. Those are the few things we got going on right now.
Awesome. You guys be sure to check it out. Midwest Rev, that's REV.com/sales training. Or you can check out the YouTube channel. I have the link. I'll post the link when we post the podcast. Appreciate you coming on, man. Another great episode of PFREI, Passion for Real Estate Investments. I'm your host, Fuquan Bilal. This is a joy. I learned a lot too. I got a lot out of this, man. I really appreciate it.